Walking the pathways on Hillsdale College's campus, one would notice small inscriptions in each brick. They include names, quotes, and affiliations of many loyal contributors to the college's mission, spanning back many years. One of these thousands of bricks belongs to one man, whose involvement and contribution to Hillsdale College was its life-saving prescription. This is the story of Spike Hennessy, the pharmacist who saved Hillsdale College.
Hillsdale College was founded in 1844 by some New England preachers who came out to the frontier and built the college on sweat and ideas. There's a letter from about 1900 by one of the founders. We were celebrating an anniversary, and he said, "People don't know how hard it was."
The college had a positive start, founded on the principles of pursuing truth and defending liberty. After being open for 11 years, the school moved from Spring Arbor to Hillsdale, Michigan. As stated in its constitution, Hillsdale's objective is to furnish to all persons who wish, irrespective of nationality, color, or sex, a literary, scientific, or theological education as comprehensive and thorough as is usually pursued in other colleges or theological schools in this country, and to combine with this such moral, social, and artistic instruction and culture as will best develop the mind and improve the hearts of the students.
They did two big things that stand out to me. One was lots of soldiers in the Civil War, more than anybody except Yale that we can find, and West Point. And the other is you had to know Greek and Latin to enter the college. So they started prep school to teach those things. So they were very serious people. It's always been very independent-minded, is today. Its recent history, that goes back to about 1960, is dominated by the fact that we don't take the money from the government, which is maybe half to two-thirds of the money that goes into colleges these days. So our competitors all have a big revenue stream, we don't. And so that's an old policy now that's more than 60 years old.
Built on these principles of self-government, Hillsdale College remained true to its values, even in the face of financial adversity. From the 1930s to the 1950s, the school faced trying times that nearly forced it to close its doors for good.
The country went through the Great Depression, a terrible economic period. Then it was World War II, another real problem period for colleges and universities. And so by the late 1940s and 1950s, the college was having trouble attracting students and paying its bills.
In 1934, a Detroit bank won a $10,000 settlement from Hillsdale College because it had not paid its loans with the bank. Headlining Michigan newspapers were slogans such as, "Hillsdale College is for sale for $11,000. Articles like these forewarned what seemed to be Hillsdale's demise. Alumni and friends of the college came together to raise enough funds to pay the settlement and other outstanding loans the college had. Despite these efforts, the college continued to struggle financially, and questions about its future remained uncertain. By 1942, the faculty members had to begin serving as plumbers and carpenters due to the school's financial inability to hire any more employees. During this time, there were reports of history professors who had to require their students to bring their own chairs to class because the school did not have the money to provide these basic necessities.
There was nothing here. It was ready to close, and that's the scary part. You look at what's going on at Hillsdale College today, and you look back at the board voting by one vote to keep the college open. Look what's going on here. None of that would have happened. This would have been a ghost town.
A century after its founding, it seemed that Hillsdale College might have to close its doors. The school needed an answer.
Spike Hennessy was a Michigan native who went to college at Hillsdale College, where he became involved in the cheer squad, and he worked at the Collegian and was at ATO and was an active student.
During his time at Hillsdale, Spike led the cheering in the stands at Charger football games. The 1926 yearbook described him as full of pep and ginger.
graduated in 1928, and he went into pharmacy just like his dad. His dad was a pharmacist. He grew up around the pharmacy, and then he went into that.
After graduation, Spike remained in Hillsdale, taking up partial ownership of his family's pharmacy, Hennessy Drugs.
Oh, he was just part of Hillsdale at that time, you know. Hennessy Drugs was the big one in town, of course, and pretty much everybody went there. And later on, there was other drugstores coming in, but Spike Hennessy, I always remember that store, you know, and his personality, and he just attracted people to him. So that was kind of cool. I mean, as a little kid, we'd go in there, and he'd look at me and say, "Hey, Scotty, how you doing?" You know, and so I always remember those days, and that's pretty cool.
In 1936, Spike attended a post-graduation social function. He'd attended events like it before, but this one stood out from the others as the night he would meet his future wife.
After he graduated, when Spike came back to Hillsdale, he met a woman called Helen, who was an economics teacher at the college, and they fell in love and got married. It's said that he was the talkative one. He loved to tell stories. She was quiet, and she liked to listen.
Helen was born September 6, 1907, in Grundy Center, Iowa. Her parents ran a prosperous farm and educated Helen and her brother William. She graduated from Rhinebeck High School in 1924 and continued her education at State University of Iowa, known today as University of Iowa. After graduating with a master's degree in commerce in 1930, Helen became a part of Hillsdale College's economics department in September of 1935. 5 years after they met, Helen and Spike were married. They never had any children, but invested their time and energy in the community and growing their family business.
So he was a local businessman, interested in the community, interested in his alma mater.
The Hennessys were faithful contributors to Hillsdale College, and they provided substantial funds to lighten the financial burdens the college faced.
Spike Hennessy joined the Board of Trustees in 1951 after the board invited him on. And this was a really difficult moment in the history of the college. Just had emerged from the Great Depression, from the Second World War. Student enrollment was down. The college was in some financial difficulty. I don't know why they invited him on, but it sounds like it makes sense to have a local businessman who knows how to run his business, who's also an alumnus, come on the board and help out.
It just made sense, you know. He's smart. It was just a great guy, and he was great to have on the board, according to my dad, you know. So he had to be on the board.
The college's operating deficit at the end of the 1950-1951 fiscal year was $65,000. Not only this, but the college had borrowed $95,000 from the years 1949 to 51 to cover payroll and any other outstanding expenses. With all these debts piling up and the refusal of help from banks, there were concerns regarding the future of Hillsdale College. In 1952, the college hired a new president, Donald Phillips.
He came to Hillsdale, and the college was ready to fold, and he didn't know how bad it was until he basically took over. They moved to Hillsdale they had 3 kids and 1 on the way, you know, and I was born 3 years later, and he just couldn't get over the fact that there was no money here, not at all.
Blindsided by the financial condition of the college, Phillips was tasked with the responsibility of keeping it from sinking into further decline.
I mean, they had no money, and I mean, what do you do from that point? You go out and start fundraising, and he met with the Dow people and got that put together, but he went out and fundraised and started getting money coming in. And, you know, it was just an amazing venture. It's just, you couldn't ask for a better guy to do that. My dad was just smart as a whip. He had personality. He could probably sell ice to Eskimo, you know, one of those type of guys. But he was sincere every minute of every day. And I think that's what people saw in him.
While the college searched for answers, student life remained oddly normal. It seemed as if the students of Hillsdale were not aware of the pressing possibility that their beloved school would very likely have to close its doors. In 1953, Hillsdale College completely ran out of funds. Professors were not getting paid, and there was no money to keep the lights on. It seemed like the college had no choice but to close.
The college was just flat out broke. It was running out of money. It couldn't pay its own faculty. It couldn't pay its own bills. And so Spike Hennessy, with his wife, said, we'll do it. We will meet those commitments. And it cost him about $20,000 a month. And now this is in 1953 dollars. That's more than $200,000 per month in today's dollars. This is a significant contribution from a local businessman. And so through this action, the college was able to stay open, to pay its faculty to do their jobs, pay its bills, keep the lights on, and keep running. And this act of generosity literally kept the lights on for Hillsdale College in the early 1950s.
Finally, the college had its head somewhat above water, but they quickly ran into another problem just a few years later.
So after the college passed this financial crisis, the one that Spike Hennessy helped it overcome, it's continued to face other challenges, including this idea that perhaps the federal government could start to fund more and more of higher education. This is what was happening in the late 1950s, going into the 1960s. A lot of federal dollars became available to colleges and universities, and they all started accepting it. This is a common thing now. Virtually every college and university accepts federal aid today, but Hillsdale College does not. And it starts from this early period when it was presented with the opportunity to take federal money. And Spike Hennessy always said, no, we shouldn't do it.
Education is a public policy issue. And almost all talk of it is about the public policy issue, which is something different than talking about education. Because education is a thing, whoever does it. And we lose sight of that thing very much today. And that has something to do with the nature of the age and the principles we believe, many believe. And it has something to do with the financing of colleges, because it's tax money and guaranteed student loans. And that changes things.
In 1959, debates over whether the college should accept federal funding ensued. If it did, the college would be forced to abandon the principles outlined in its constitution. And Donald Phillips would not let that stand.
My dad was steadfast in that. He knew right away what the college stood for, and he did not want government control. And I think he won all the board over with that background, and so I think that's where it all started, on the upward trend for Hillsdale, just not taking anything. And look how it worked out. I mean, pretty good. People love that. You know, they donate a lot of money because we don't take government money, and it's just really unbelievable story.
President Phillips and Spike's commitment to the college and its values was not a view that stood unopposed. They were met with the resistance of wealthy members of the Board of Trustees who were in favor of accepting this federal aid, even if it meant going against what the college was founded on.
It's attractive. They'd just gone through a difficult financial period. You can imagine what they thought. My gosh, why would you not take this money? Help us stay open. Maybe we won't have another financial crisis. But Spike Hennessy always said, no, we need to maintain our independence. And so his opposition to this practice helped create what we have today, which is a college that's thriving, is completely free from federal regulations, from federal oversight, from federal meddling, from a Department of Education in Washington, D.C. telling us what to do. Instead, Hillsdale College today is flourishing, and it's maintained its independence.
President Phillips and Spike Hennessy were not willing to compromise the character of Hillsdale College and continued to fight against the reception of federal aid. Ultimately, they won this battle. The contributions of Spike and Helen Hennessy and the action taken by Phillips and the Board of Trustees to remain independent preserved the culture of the college. Hillsdale College is known today as a school that thrives because of the dedication and contributions of its donors.
And so the college has always needed this kind of support. It's always sought it out from the very earliest days, with Ransom Dunn going on his wintertime search for funds from people who wanted to support this college. The college always depended on the generosity of friends and strangers. Spike Hennessy is a part of this great tradition, and of course his gift was one of the most important of all, because it helped the college stay open during a time of real peril. and begin to become the thing it is today, which is really one of the best colleges in the country, and a college that still depends on the support of friends who want to give to what we do here and make this education possible.
In addition to his financial support of the college, Spike Hennessy played a pivotal role in one of the most consequential events in Hillsdale's history. In the fall of 1955, Hillsdale had the best small college football team in the country, led by a young coach, Frank "Muddy" Waters. The Dales were invited to play in a bowl game in Orlando called the Tangerine Bowl, and Hillsdale College President Phillips sent a delegation of 2 people to Florida to negotiate the deal: Coach Waters and trustee Spike Hennessy. But when they got to Orlando, the pair discovered that they would only be allowed to play in the bowl game if the team left its 4 black players at home. Muddy and Spike stood their ground and refused to acquiesce. In that fall's alumni newsletter, President Phillips explained it all to the Hillsdale College community. So it was that trustee Hennessy and athletic director Waters, serving as our ambassadors to the Tangerine Bowl Commission at Orlando, Florida, did themselves and their college proud by holding fast against the sort of discrimination that would prohibit members of the football team from participating in the game if we were chosen. These 2 gentlemen walked the path of honor, even though it meant no bowl game for Hillsdale's outstanding team. And the team approved to a man. With the college's independence and founding principles assured, Spike Hennessy stepped down from the Board of Trustees due to his declining health. His final address to the board was this: "During the past 30 years, the stature of Hillsdale College has changed from a typical liberal arts college, one without a goal, to a nationally recognized institution, one with adequate motivation and established programs to become the best small liberal arts school in the United States. Participating with you all has been a responsibility and an honor for me." Soon after, Hennessy Drugs was sold and became Nash Drugs. And in 1982, Spike passed away. Within a few short months, Helen did as well. After 50 years of service, Nash Drugs closed its doors at the end of 2020.
Hillsdale College today is flourishing and it's maintained its independence, and Spike Hennessy was there defending it from the very earliest days. Hillsdale College would be nothing without the people who are committed to it, and that means the students, it means the faculty and staff, it means the town that we live in, but it also means the people who financially contributed, the donors who help make it all possible. College education is expensive. Even the students who are paying their entire tuition are not funding their full education. A lot of the support is coming from people they'll never meet, who are providing the means to make this education possible.
Hillsdale College is a going concern. It's not rich, but it's prosperous. It is organized around the same mission that Spike Hennessy served, and long before him, too. Indeed, at every board meeting we begin by reading from the Articles of Association of the college. And those have been continuous with only one significant change since 1844. And so it's the same thing. And all the changes are, it's easy to miss what's the same because the changes are so many. It's bigger now. It's a national institution. It talks to millions of people every month. It's famous, or in some small circles, notorious.
So I think the values of Hillsdale are timeless, and I think that's why it makes it extremely important what we do here to education, because education is also timeless. It's something that every single person from the moment that they're born through, I think education is continual to the day you die. You're always learning. But specifically with Hillsdale, I think it's education in the classics and in the liberal arts.
And yet, the continuity is the thing. Kids come here, they're 18 years old. They may be more worldly than some kid in 1960 or 1860. They have tools of information far beyond what those kids had. Also far beneath, because those kids were workers on the land, mostly. And you learn something from that. It's like mining and farming, and hunting and fishing. So, but they're still 18 years old. And that means they have the condition that human beings have. That is to say, as you live, you gain knowledge and experience, and those are handy. And you grow stronger, shrewder, and more knowing. One hopes better character. But when you're 18, you haven't had very much time to do that. And yet you have this blessing. You have enormous energy and curiosity. And that's a great time to address oneself to serious learning. And that's what we do here, just as we did in Spike Hennessy's day, and just as we did in Edmund Fairfield and Austin Blair's day, and Ransom Dunn's day.
The story of Spike Hennessy is not well known here on campus. It's there to be found if you go look in some of the accounts of the history of the college that have been written, but it's largely untold, and more people need to know about it. We remember our history here in a lot of ways, but Spike Hennessy is one that I didn't know about until very recently. And it's an amazing story, and it's a story about how a local businessman helped this college survive one of its darkest moments. And it's possible to think that without Spike Hennessy, Hillsdale College wouldn't be here today. But we have this local pharmacist to thank for the sacrifice that made it possible for Hillsdale College to survive and today to thrive.
So initially, all it was to me was a name on the annex that we'd see going in, like during the open houses, and whenever we'd use the annex. It's just a name that's kind of always there, and I myself didn't even really know the extent of his contributions until I looked further into it. People just don't know. I think a lot of people assumed he was an alumnus who donated it and who is still living, but it's actually dedicated to Gerald Spike Hennessy. It wasn't given by him. But I think figuring out his story and learning about it more, I think it fits in with, more broadly, with the ideas and virtues that we champion at ATO and that we strive towards.
So I didn't know anything about that story, Spike Hennessy, until you mentioned it. And I think his dedication to the college just proves even the answer to that question of, is Hillsdale's mission worth fighting for? And I think I would say absolutely yes, and he, I think, would say the exact same, because of the dedication and the finances that he provided to the college of something is happening here that is profoundly unique and that needs preservation.
Spike's resting place is in Oak Grove Cemetery, next to his wife and family members near Hillsdale College. The contribution that he and his wife have made to the college is one of great impact. We must ask ourselves, where would Hillsdale College be without the help of Spike Hennessy? Would it still be considered the bastion of freedom that it is today? Would students be admitted for their excellence of character and academic achievement rather than their race or sex? Spike Hennessy stands as an example for the rest of the school, as one who believed, once a Hillsdale student, always a Hillsdale student. We are forever indebted to the contribution of one man, the pharmacist who saved Hillsdale College.